Well, it's the second week of playoffs with coverage brought to you by Alienware. I'm joined right now by C9 coach Max Waldo for a very different interview than the last one that we did, where everything was exploding around you. This time, you guys have just beat Golden Guardians in a clean sweep. So obviously last week, very different results than this week. So do you think it was just the teams that you were facing, or is this the result of a lot of work that you guys have put in over the past 5 days?
I mean, it's never going to be one or the other, right? It's always going to be a combination of both.
It has to be one or the other. Choose. No, I'm just kidding.
So for the purposes of this interview, we can say, let's go with it's the teams. That Golden Guardians is a weaker opponent than 100 Thieves.
Yes.
Of course, from my perspective, I'll be able to say that we've been working hard every day. We've been improving. Recently made a change in the bot lane, and I think we're playing really well in the past 3 days. But again, for the purposes of the interview, Golden Guardians bad. 100 Thieves winner bracket, maybe EG next week.
Well, no, because I think after last week there was kind of a crisis of faith in the C9 fandom around like, oh God, is our team actually garbage? And then, well, no,
my bad.
Dude didn't go into those Reddit threads clearly.
Sorry for picking shit necked, my bad.
Okay, so yeah, so that's what I was gonna. So a lot of people were like, oh God, it's over, it's doomed, and then they see this, which is obviously on the opposite end of the spectrum. So that's what I'm trying to get from you is kind of like, where should fans be recalibrating their expectations and their opinion on the team now?
I think the expectation should be high. Imagine we go 6 feet under, the coffin is here, it's shit necked in, and now when we beat Golden Guardians, we're up in the air, we're ascending. So the expectation should be high.
So let's talk about shit necked in. I've now said it enough that I'm sure I'm going to get demonetized. But let's talk about the
Sorry,
draft.
Travis.
No, it's okay.
Censor me.
Yes, no, it's fine. So obviously, a lot of the criticism last week was also about the draft, and so how much ownership do you personally, Max Waldo, take for last week? No, how much of it do you think was the draft, and how much of that is different this week, etc.?
So again, for the purposes of the interview, I can take full credit. I'm on stage and I'm telling the team we must lock in. Okay. We must lock in Recton here. But in reality, it's a team decision. We have meetings where we talk about draft and we put drafts on a screen and we agree that we should play this. This is the highest chance of winning. We'll play this. And these options, these different responses we have, we'll write it all out, all the different iterations of what we could possibly face, and then we agree on different actions to take. Yeah. So can kind of it's hard to pin it on one person. It's really a team effort to draft. Right. But again, for the purposes of the interview, Recton bad. Last week, Max Waldo bad. Gotcha. Sorry. I'll do better.
There was a lot of conversation last week about Summit. Because it was very funny where in the course of basically 14 days or even less, maybe 10, people were like, Summit, MVP Summit. And then they're like, actually, Summit has a champion Thimble, and he can't actually play any of these champions. And that's actually a big part of the issue. So what was kind of your reaction to a lot of the conversation around Summit and sort of the way that you guys had played around him so much previously?
So my reaction to the conversation, I just don't read what gets posted on the internet very much.
Sure.
So I'm just aware of the issues that are happening when we draft in scrims, when we draft on stage, and we see things get a lot harder to work with when Gnar and Jace are banned. And when you look at our match history, when you look at throughout the split, you see tons of our wins, especially against really good teams, have Gnar and Jace in them. So teams figured out around the last 2 or 3 weeks of the regular season that you should just be banning Gnar Jace against CLOUD9 every match, and that's when this reaction started. Where if this gets banned in the first phase, our top lane champion pool, even if we can pick whatever champion, it's just the outcomes are going to be worse than on those two. Right. So we have to build this up from the ground up. It's okay, we can't play these champions in scrims. We have to focus really hard on playing in different styles as well, because Gnar and Jace share a similar approach to the lane. They share this style where you can stand in lane for a long time. You can stand under the enemy turret and poke. And this is what Summit's really good at. He's really good at trading, staying in lane for a long time, and then basing with a lot of gold, coming back and being very oppressive, staying inside lane for, again, a very long time. So playing different champions requires a different approach, so it took a lot of practice to get to the point where we can just pick Orin, we can just pick GP now without any issue. It seems now it's unaffected. Right. Where Gnar and Jace is banned and there doesn't seem to be much of a change.
In addition to the conversation about Summit's champion pool, there was also a lot of conversation just around the idea that like, oh, C9 can only win through top. Like that is their win condition, and like the meta doesn't really favor mid lane carries. There's and maybe their bot lane just can't make it happen either. So do you think that has been true of Cloud9 in the past, that you guys were basically only able to win through Summit carrying the game?
Yeah.
Do you think that that's been solved now?
Yeah.
Okay. What solved it? Is it just the bot lane, like the support change?
But it's also like what we're talking about, where like the end of the 3 weeks of the regular season, where teams start banning Gnar and Jace, and we're like, okay, our approach, obviously teams are going to respond to it in this way, so we need to change our direction. We can't just play through top. This isn't going to be a successful strategy for us if teams are, first of all, so aware of it, where they're banning Gnar and Jace in the first phase every game, and then also the change in the bot lane and our ability to play through bot lane, picking Kate Lux today, picking MF Leona 2-3. I think it's been addressed.
I will ask you maybe the question that will always get the obvious answer from a coach for a player, but do you think there was ever a time where people were putting Summit too much on a pedestal? Because people for a while were like, oh my God, Summit is this god and he's so good, etc. Then you kind of, as you admit, you get to like the final couple of weeks of the split and it's like, okay, just ban Gnar and Jace, and like he's not going to look like he does on other situations. So was there a world where people were maybe even like overestimating him or lifting him up too much in those for the beginning of the split?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure what you mean by people. I mean by like social media.
Pundits, fans, casters, like the general consensus outside of the teams themselves.
For sure. But I still think he's the best top laner in LCS.
Yeah.
I still think that that's true, and I still think that as weeks go by, you'll just see that Gnar and Jace bans become less and less effective, and you'll just see that we will care less and less as time goes on. Our ability to play through other lanes, through other approaches, will just become stronger and stronger every week, because we're just aware of what other teams are aware of at this point.
Obviously, I'm sure you wish that last week had gone differently. But I do wonder if it's helped at all prepare you guys for like later on in playoffs, because obviously I'm sure there were a lot of learnings after last week.
Yeah, it's always like, well, you lose, but when you lose, it makes it really urgent to solve the problems that caused you to lose. Right. So when you lose a best of 5 series and when you lose badly, you say, okay, well, there are obviously some fundamental problems. There are obviously some problems with our approach that cause us to not be able to win not even one of 3 games. So that urgency and that push to improve, I think, is really helpful to a team. It makes it so that the next week when we play like Golden Guardians this week, if we do well, we get tons of confidence. Because like, oh, the things that we changed are actually good. Let's keep adapting. Let's keep changing so we can take a step forward.
I want to talk about next week and the week after by talking about last week, because I think last week there were a ton of learnings, right? I think people did not expect the C900T match to go the way that it did, and then also they didn't expect the TL-EG match to go the way that it did. Tomorrow we'll see FlyQuest and EG face off against each other. We don't know who's going to win that, but what do you think of EG, 100T, and TL, especially in light of last week? Because previously I think people thought, oh, this is maybe even just a 2-team league where you have C9 and TL up at the top, but now that there's been such like a perspective shift after last week, like what do you think of EG, 100T, and TL and how they all kind of measure up against each other?
So I would still maintain that, I think I've said this in a different piece of content, that 100 out of the 3 of them, 100, EG, and TL, that 100's the weakest. Okay. I think in my mind, TL is the strongest. EG and scrims are really good. Yeah,
that's what we've heard for a while. We've heard C9. We've always heard C9 not doing great in scrims, and then EG, these god mode scrim that are then they can't translate that to stage.
Yeah, they're pretty good in scrims, but yeah, on stage they look different. So I would rank them as TL, EG, 100, excluding ourselves.
Gotcha. Okay. So, what's your confidence level that you can get to Houston?
Pretty high. Okay. It's like an expectation. Yeah.
What's your confidence level that you can win in Houston? Both days.
Both days, Saturday, Sunday. So you're saying, what is our confidence that we can beat now EG, yes. EG or FlyQuest, but let's say EG, because let's do this by strength teams. EG, 100, and TL. It's pretty high, but when we get to finals, presumably against TL, that would be like the expectation. This could all be wrong in a few weeks.
Right. But if you had to map it out on a bracket,
I think TL would be the hardest match, and it'd be very exciting, and I wouldn't be able to guarantee any outcome. But up until that point, I think we'll make it to finals.
Anything that you want to say to any of the fans out there?
Thank you guys for watching. We'll draft Renekton next week. Sorry. Oh, shit, man.
You couldn't even get it out. You couldn't even get it out.
It hurt me. Man.
Very good. Well, looking forward to seeing Renekton come back next week. And for everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things LCS right here on my YouTube channel. As big as this screen is, it's nowhere near as cool as the Alienware 34-inch OLED monitor, available now at alienware.com/Travis. There's a link in the description below. You got to check this thing out. It's the first of its kind. It's getting rave reviews. Just look it up. It's amazing. Again, alienware.com/Travis. Link in the description. Thanks, Alienware, for sponsoring.